We have an amazing presentation on Page and Werner's College of Great Falls campus. And our speakers today are part of the who's who of Montana history. Patty Dean is here. She's a public historian specializing in architecture, design, and decorative arts. She was the curator of art and history collections at the Montana Historical Society. Woo woo. And she's also the founding curator of the Arkansas Arts Center Decorative Arts Museum and supervisory curator at the Museum of Collections of the Minnesota Historical Society, where she documented the work of mid-20th century Minneapolis firm Close Associates. She also has worked for Preserve Montana and the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts and other nonprofits. Her publications include Cass Gilbert and Big Sky Country, his designs for the Montana Club, Drumlemon Views, Coming Home, a special issue devoted to the historic built environments and landscapes of Butte and Anaconda, and the forthcoming monograph, An Arts and Crafts Gem in the Northern Rockies, the architecture of St. Peter's Cathedral. We have a double hitter today. Lesley Gilmore is also here. Lesley is an architect specializing in historic preservation. She's proud of her longtime passion for preserving the recent past and trying to convince others to appreciate it.
Good morning, everyone. Can everybody see over me? So one of Montana's most extraordinary architectural achievements is the College of Great Falls, now Providence University, just off 10th Avenue and 20 and 23rd Streets. Built in 1960 and only 21 months, 11 buildings of aesthetic and technological significance would rise from 104 acres of Montana prairie. The College of Great Falls, now known as Providence University, and I will keep referring to it as College of Great Falls because that's how my brain works, or doesn't work, was then and remains today the largest concentration of modernist buildings in Montana. Only 4 years old, Page and Werner Architects of Great Falls were selected by the Sisters of Providence in early 1956 for a $3 million project to design and build a new campus on the sand dunes, as the site owned by the sisters for 14 years was locally known. And we'll take a quick little armchair tour of first the aerial city of the city of Great Falls. So at the bottom, you can see College of Great Falls, probably early 1960, judging by the snow. And just to orient ourselves, there's the now gone Anaconda Stack, the Ursuline Center, wonderful prairies up there. I just love this photo. Grain elevators, Great Falls High School, Columbus Hospital. And this is likely on 10th Avenue South, the billboard that I opened my talk with. The 11 buildings totaled over 1 million square feet, used 450 tons of reinforced steel, 11,000 cubic yards of concrete, 43,000 square feet of curtain wall construction, and 126,000 square feet of concrete lift slab. We'll now take a quick little tour of the campus as shown in postcards from circa 1960. Described by Page and Werner principal Vince Werner as the fantastic event and his reminiscences 50 years later, the story grows more extraordinary over time. So here we have, all right, there we go. We have the Student Center on a terraced lot, Emily Hall, the Women's Dormitory, Sullivan Building, and then here, just a corner of what was then the Administration and Library Building. Close-up of Emily Hall, 3 stories, and its interior. The Student Center with a wonderful reflecting pool here and stairs that take you to the upper campus. And then the interior of the Student Center with this marvelous conical fireplace and this wonderful spiral staircase, which figures into a lot of graphics and publicity that the college has at the time. And then the chapel, now known as Trinitas Chapel, with an enclosed breezeway over to the nunnery, over to the priory. You'll note, for those of you who are familiar with the campus, there's no campanile in this photo. That will come in 1963. And then this tremendous crucifix in the chapel that I hope Kirby Lambert's going to address it. So we'll take a quick look, though, at what modernism in general looked like in Montana at the time. This is the John F. Kennedy School in Uptown Butte by Big Butte. It's by E.F. Link, 1958, and it was one of the most exuberant expressions of modernism in Montana. Unfortunately, for various reasons, the school district totally blocked up a lot of the windows, so it's not this wonderful primary color extravaganza as you see here. This is the Big G Shopping Center in Glasgow on US Highway 2, a 60-foot pylon, a Sputnik little ornamentation on the roof, and then kind of a googie architecture, which was a type of architecture style that originated in Southern California. Sadly, this one too, according to Google, is now been a kind of vanilla-ized, I guess would be the only way to put it. The wonderful Sisson and Craighead apartments at the U of M in Missoula. That's Whitwer and Whitwer and Price, 1957. St. Anthony's Church with a great campanile here in Laurel. That is E.F. Link in 1960. Sigvald Berg's 1954 to 56 Western Life Building in Helena. And then one of my recent favorites is St. John the Evangelist in Butte on the Flats by Norman J. Hamill and Associates, 1959, which has amazing Dalle de Verre glass done by Father James Berry. So World War II veterans, Page and Werner, met at MSC, where Billings native Keith Kolb, there in the lower left corner, had a Rutgers engineering degree and University of Washington architecture degree. He taught MSC's only architectural design class in the School of Engineering, teaching the contemporary architecture of the day. Page and Werner started their partnership in 1953. Their first commission was likely a house in Valier. And in winter 1956, Vince was able to attend the Banff School of Arts, where Richard Neutra, was teaching, one of the very few Americans in the class. So up here at the top, we have, that's George in an art and architecture fraternity at MSC. And then here is the president of the fundraising for the college. The gentleman looking up at him is Mel Buck, who was the contractor out of Cascade by way of Alaska. Here we have George Page, and he's visiting with John Mudd, whose sister Rita Mudd was also a sister. She was Sister Rita of the Sacred Heart. She will become president and a few years after the college opens. And then here, Vince Werner wearing wonderful light-colored shoes and on that terrazzo staircase, spiral staircase. So we'll just flip through a few of their works dating from 1960. This is likely their first ecclesiastical commission. This is the Catholic Church, Guardian Angel Catholic Church in Power, that was built in 1955. And then the Glacier County and Cut Bank Public Library, that is 1956. One thing that's really wonderful about this is Rudy Audio, who had just finished up working at the Bray with Pete Volkus and had finished his graduate degree at Pullman. And that's the brick mason there. And they had installed this wonderful mural, which is still there today. It would be in about that position. And then two proposed drawings for the Montana Rehab Center. This would be 1955 to 58. It was an Easter Seal funded project. And I don't believe it's extant anymore. I've driven by. If it is, it's like really changed. But it's on Central and 44th Street was its location. And then the wonderful Howdy Restaurant, which is where a town pump car wash is now. My favorite thing is the airplane jet down there at the bottom. It's a different kind of drive-in. And then you can't talk about the 1950s without the Edsel showroom. This was on 521 10th Avenue South. It's still there, but modified. It's a tire shop now. The Riverview School, as proposed on Smelter Avenue. As far as I can tell, only one of these wings was built, but it was quite an enterprise. It was $656,000 and 18 classrooms. And then Actually, I'll send this one out to Steve LaRue at Skier. This is the Page and Werner design for Kings Hill Ski Lodge in 1960. And just a great shot of their 1965 offices. The exterior, you can see a lot of Japanese influence there, kind of the floating over the stone foundation. And then the interior of, they're just fabulous photos. So the College of Great Falls opens in 1932 as a junior college and normal school for women, and they co-administered it with the Ursuline sisters. But over time, because of World War II returning vets and everything, it became very overcrowded. And I think it was 1956, they had to turn away 250, pardon me, prospective students because they were using buildings at the Columbus Hospital campus. But fortuitously, this is a picture of the dusty prairie, if it's a little hard to see. In 1944, academic dean Sister Lucia Sullivan had purchased open prairie in the south perimeter of Great Falls, an action likened to Seward's Folly by some. And the 6 years following the sisters' acquisition, 10th Avenue South had grown into a major thoroughfare with commercial development like the Howdy restaurant and the Edsel showroom and homes. But should they forsake their only higher educational facility between their mother house in Montreal and Seattle, or take the risk to build a totally new campus? In early 1957, they decided to do just that, and they assumed the total financial responsibility for the new campus. Now, all they had to do was to select an architectural firm and hired Page and Werner, all of 4 years old, with a one-paragraph agreement in early 1956. So their characteristics of the firm at that time were detailed in a presentation by the Hamilton, Montana School Board. And I think that this might show or reveal partly why the sisters were interested in Page and Werner. The school board in Hamilton said, we chose them because they didn't insist on building a monumental structure. They wanted economical, practical construction, no shoddiness and cheapness. They wanted an architect who worked well with school boards and officials. They wanted someone with imagination who would undertake a great deal of research and who would be familiar with modern school problems. They wanted an architect who understood the importance of costs and who had an excellent reputation where accuracy of cost estimates was concerned. So the team was assembled, but it needed an owner's rep. And so we have that in Sister Henry Alphonse, who comes from the Mother House in Montreal. She was sent to UW Seattle for a year's study in construction management and was the owner's rep throughout the entire process. And you can see here, this is really great, the wonderful renderings done by a California firm, and then all of the plans behind her, and she's also got plants in front of her. So she was, I think, a pretty formidable personality. So material culture and the built environment embody the cultural values of their time, and the CGF campus is no exception. In the final years of his 20-year tenure as CGF's president, the Right Reverend Monsignor James J. Donovan anticipated just such a new frontier for the college, dedicating its planning in the 1950s to a future focus that had been instigated by Sister Lucia's acquisition of the sandy dunes. These new forms, technologies, and processes utilized by Page and Werner that Lesley will detail shortly spoke only to the future, the new frontier JFK had described in July 1960 at the Democratic National Convention, only 2 months before CGF opened its doors. In April 1958, a banquet at the Hotel Rainbow launched the $500,000 public campaign to build a new campus and featured Edgar W. Smith of the President's Committee on Education Beyond High School, the same entity quoted on the first page here of the slick fundraising brochure. His talk, entitled Of Mines and Missiles, linked the primary role post-secondary education would play to win the Cold War. Afterwards, George and Vince's presentation of the new campus plans manifested the college of the future. Decades later, Vince mused that perhaps the sisters, quote, were willing to experience new construction methods. Our young firm carried no pre-war baggage of modified historical styles. They knew we were value conscious and resourceful.
Okay, what a great lead in. I really appreciate it. So we're going to talk about going to the next slide, where one of the other sisters played a prominent role in the College of Great Falls. So we're going to talk about the design and the construction. So as you know, the construction itself was overseen by Sister Alphonse, but Sister Mary Trinitas, she was an artist and she was the chairman of the art department, and she was a professor of art there, and she'd been with the school since 1933, just a year after its founding. So she took a year off to do the planning and design and construction for a lot of the art that found its way throughout the campus. So think of that when you look through the slides of a very mid-century, someone might say austere campus. There was decoration involved and a lot of thought to the materials that went into it. And apparently Kirby will talk about this, so I'll just briefly go. I mean, the crucifix is her design, and the mosaic, her construction. She also, gosh, I had a great tour. So Jose showed me in the art center, this is still her writing on the bottles of the glazes for the formulas. So she was intensely involved in a lot of the work that was involved there, and her legacy remains. Right. So the planning of the college itself. I think, Patty gave you an idea of where it's located, and actually the campus itself was located further south of 10th Avenue South to get away from the noise and distraction of that busy street with all the buildings she was showing you. So they were south of that, and apparently we're quoting the same thing. Their young firm carried no pre-war baggage or modified historical styles. This is a classic response for architecture firms in the mid-century. They'd all been, drinking the Kool-Aid of all those international architects who came over from Germany and Europe. So we're talking Walter Gropius, we're talking Mies van der Rohe, we're talking other schools built at the same time that are very similar in terms of layout and the type of buildings that are constructed. I mean, we're talking Marcel Breuer at St. Mary's in Bismarck, North Dakota. We're talking Mies van der Rohe at IIT in Chicago. All over the country, new college campuses were being built, and they were all quite similar. Instead of having one building where all the departments would be, this was spread out. So as a department grew, the building could grow, and it didn't have to affect the rest of the campus there. And you can see it's very rectilinear. Let me go back. There's also a necklace. So that's what the yellow circle is. George Page was concerned that it actually be treated like a necklace. And so what you have in the center is the student center, which I'm assuming is the neck, and the rest of the buildings are the necklace around it. And they can expand as they will, or you can also have more buildings added to it, and they all relate back to this center. And they studied the wind, the weather. They documented and graphed it for about a year and found that the winds are pretty heavy from the west-southwest, and you also have a nasty north wind. So they worked really hard to orient the buildings so that when you entered into the buildings, you wouldn't be buffeted by all this wind. They also oriented it 15 degrees from the grid of Great Falls. And last night I was trying to do the figuring of how did that affect the winds. I'm not really sure. I'll have to say, I think, and it's a windy campus as it is anyway. So any protection at the entries is welcome. Again, the star, well, very axial arrangement with all the methods that you walk through the campus, how you navigate it, and the star is the student center. So at the top of the screen is the east parking lot. The bottom of the screen is the west parking lot. And to get into the campus, I'm pretty sure the main entry, in fact, the best entry would be from the top, from the west. You go down steps and you navigate this incredible portal, which is a penetration through this Sullivan classroom building. And then you enter into the inner sanctum of the college itself. This is what you do. And this is a historic photo, but it's still the same thing. You're up there at the parking lot, you walk down this wonderful cascade of stairs, you penetrate the building and get into the inner core of campus. And this is what it looks like from the west side. And you see very rectilinear line. And don't walk off that sidewalk. And the buildings all on either side, very orthogonal. And yet you can see, and we will be kind of doing a whirlwind tour, that although there's a lot of similarity between the buildings, there's a lot of differentiation as well. And one of those walks led from it still does lead from the student union to the Emily Residence Hall and gives you a great view of all the rest of the buildings on campus. That view remains today, but it's it's a warmer campus. There's a lot of vegetation, big, beautiful spruces and cottonwoods, which really help warm it up, make it a little harder to take some photographs for great comparison, but it's a wonderful feeling of on the campus there. And the common elements that I was referring to earlier really shine when you look at the community, the student center in the middle and the Sullivan Hall with the portal on the right. We're talking about curtain walls, which is an aluminum structure, essentially with glass and brick and planes of brick in contrast with the curtain walls. It's a wonderful juxtaposition. You can tell that a lot of thought and study went into the design of these buildings. And flat roofs. So no projecting eaves, no cornices, no rafter tails. In fact, a very, very thin and shallow detail of a fascia that's to keep whatever rain or snow potentially off of that facade, because the fascia lines up directly with the facade. It's a very clean, crisp appearance. Some other common elements were the concrete, cantilevered concrete, SCC, to protect the entry, and what I'm calling a brick windscreen. We talked about wind. These windscreens really come in handy. And an innovative solution. I don't know if Ben Hurlbut, their engineer, came up with this. You know, he was the engineer for the Brick Breed and Field House, and he was the engineer for this project. He found the lift slab construction, or maybe one of the architects did. I shouldn't speak his mind, but congratulations to the college, because they were one of the first to use the lift slab construction. It had been developed in the late 40s, and then a man named Thomas Slick actually got a patent for it in 55, but didn't use it. First used it in 1952, but these are the details of that. You pour the footings, you erect the columns, you pour the grade slab, and then you start pouring all the other slabs on top of that same grade slab. You obviously have to have a separation between them, and you have to let the concrete set, but then you start lifting them up. You know, you have holes where the columns are, and you lift them all up. And this is the first use of it at the Trinity College in San Antonio, Texas. It doesn't look like they're using hydraulics yet. It looks like they have got a kind of pulley system at the columns. And this was the first use before it was even patented. This is 1952. Another lovely mid-century campus by O'Neill Ford in that case. This is Great Falls, College of Great Falls, and I'm doing what Patty does. That's what we call it, hydraulics. That's where we really were able to lift all these slabs up on, I think it was 9 of the buildings. And this is it in its completed form, 8-inch slabs all throughout. And the other common elements, you know, I mentioned the curtain wall, and I'll explain why it appears so vertical in contrast with the brick. And the brick was it was never load bearing. It was an infill wall within either steel structure or concrete structure. And the brick had a pattern to it, random pattern, but it wasn't all the same brick. So you have white, you have black glazed brick, you have a variety of colors here. And this is one of the more unusual components in the science building, a rounded restroom structure. And the use of clear story glass was unusual. And there you see that 8-inch roof slab with the very narrow fascia. This is the reason the curtain wall shows up so clearly on all the buildings. These are deep mullions. They're 3.5 inches deep. And they had a beautiful 1/4-inch plate glass that was gray and slightly reflective. These are all the same buildings, all on sheet A33 for every single building. So that's one way to be very economical. Now the panels that you see on the bottom there were insulated porcelain enamel panels, and so there was an insulation value to them, and they were colored to match the brick, to be compatible with the brick. They have since been painted all sorts of colors, mostly to align with the school's colors. The defender there, the mascot, is your clue there. And we also have wood mullions there as well. So we do have some different of expressions. And this is that passageway from the chapel to the nuns' residence hall. We have differentiators as well, usually due to the building's use. So the building on the left here is the auditorium. The building on the right is the art center. So obviously, if you have an auditorium, you're going to have a different shape and different mass for your building. Another differentiator was our portal through Sullivan Hall. And a sweet little column capital that occurs in some of the buildings that isn't really necessary, but there it is as a way to express that it's a column that's supporting a greater weight above. Now, one differentiator that did not happen was the chapel, number 3 here on the left, folded plate, folded concrete plate roof around an octagonal structure, which was anticipating Vatican II. There was going to be an interior altar right in the center with a skylight above it. And William Condom, the bishop, said, essentially, no friggin' way. We're not ready for this now. Interesting idea. Move on to something like this, where the structure is really expressed on the exterior. All the brown is concrete, painted concrete, and the brick is an infill wall. And then you have your wonderful curtain wall in front with actually 11.5-inch wood mullions here to be able to span that height, and the stained glass windows on the inside developed by Sister Trinitas. They've been working on the building, so it's a little naked right now, but the sister designed Stations of the Cross that marched along all those wonderful angled walls that have beautiful diffuse light that comes in, and there's diffuse light on either side of the crucifix as well. Express structure with the concrete and the brick in between, the campanile, a carillon without bells. It has speakers and the cross on top. It's 60 feet tall. So it is an icon. It says, we're a campus here. And it's really helping define and draw people together. And, you know, the bells bring people to the chapel. So a real expression of the school itself. So the student center, a wonderful study of solids and voids and the planar walls of brick juxtaposed with the clear story. And you can see the slabs very clearly, the roof slab and the second floor slab, and a recessed area where they have what the international architects love to call pilotti, these single columns that you can see through here as well, where the reflecting pool was, reflecting on the education that you would get in the Sullivan building, I guess. And another differentiator, this was very common in the mid-50s. Edward Durrell-Stone really made it popular. Precast concrete brise soleil. This is a southern facade. It would have heated a lot during the day. This really helped soften the light and the beautiful sparkles and shadows on the interior. And yet the other common elements of the brick wall, the curtain wall behind it. And this is its companion building. This is the auditorium building. Again, the curtain wall, the brick within the steel structure, wonderful canopy, which slides on into the inside. A very pretty common expression of dealing with the inside and outside and that connection between them. And here we have the steel columns of its brick wall and a very interesting, very economical corner. I thought, oh, dogtooth brick, this is so exciting. Doesn't show up on the plans, but it's less expensive. Because the walls are not 90-degree angles, they're obtuse angles, they didn't have to make special shaped brick. It was less expensive to build it this way, just like at a warehouse building. This is the Missoula Mercantile Warehouse building from 1912. It's economical. And these are our guys. We have Vince on the left and George on the right, and Patty's going to finish up. Ooh. Good luck, girl.
Thank you. Okay. In Montana, especially in the post-war years, everything and everyone seemed to be connected in some way. The brick that built the CGF campus was manufactured on the Helena site of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. One of its co-founders, artist and oil company manager Branson Stevenson of Great Falls, also served as president of the board of lay regents and advisory group to Great Falls, or College of Great Falls. He attended the 1958 of Mines and Missiles fundraising kickoff. Sister Trinitas's relationship to Vince Werner specifically had started when he was a just graduated high schooler who had no idea that he would become an architect or that her life and artistry would have such a great impact on him. Steve LaRue, who started at Page and Werner in 1978 and purchased it about 10 years later, described this permeating connectedness in an interview I did with him earlier this year. Quote, "What I learned from Vincent George had nothing to do with architecture and everything with how you treat people, how you deal with clients, and how you do your best work for these people," end quote. In addition to modeling this attitude to younger architects in their firm, like Steve, Vincent George had also taken others' advice to heart, particularly that of Keith Kolb, their professor. Vince recalled, "Back as we were preparing to graduate from MSc, George Page asked Professor Kolb, 'What can make our work better and more enjoyable? For what rather constant mental attitude should we strive?' Without hesitation, the simple answer given was so simple and direct. Quote, 'Have delight in your work, George. Permit it never to be a chore. Your effort will always be creative. Returning to that aura and savoring of delight will make so many things possible for you. Your pleasure, enjoyment, and sense of satisfaction, yes, at times will overwhelm you.'" Thank you.